what we need versus what we want. It seems like the two are often fighting against each other, or sometimes it's hard to even distinguish between the two. And often in life, we're told to choose between one or the other. But is that a good strategy when trying to learn Spanish? What should you be focusing on when learning Spanish? What you need to learn or what you want to learn? Let's dive in and talk about it. Comencemos, amigos. Hola mis queridos líderes del lenguaje, bienvenidos a otro video. Si es la primera vez que tú y yo nos estamos conociendo, te doy la bienvenida. Yo me llamo Erika. Aquí te ayudamos a aprender a hablar español con confianza y a crear una rutina de aprendizaje irresistible por medio de las historias y las conversaciones auténticas. Si eso te parece interesante, pues suscríbete para no perderte de nada. You know, a lot of Spanish learners actually have a really good idea about what they need to learn with the language. And I'll talk to them and they'll tell me, you know, Erica, I am pretty good with the present tense, but I really struggle with the past. Or those reflexive verbs get me every time. Or I'm really bad with the pronouns, the direct and indirect object pronouns. I know how to do it. I know the concept. If I'm writing and I can think hard enough or long enough, then I can get them in the right place. But in a spontaneous conversation, it's really hard. And when I evaluate their Spanish, I see that they're almost always right. And it's true. So shouldn't that be enough? Shouldn't we be able to just take our trouble spots, really focus on that grammar, hone in on it, apply it, and be good to go? Well, the fact is, it just doesn't work very well doing it that way. And here's the reason why. You don't actually want to learn past tenses or reflexive verbs or direct and indirect object pronouns. You're like, what are you talking about, Erica? Yes, I do want to learn those things. You know, maybe it's these or maybe it's other trouble spots, but the fact is that I know I need those things, so of course I want to learn them. But what I mean is that the reason that you started learning Spanish? Are you learning Spanish to master those grammatical aspects? Or are you learning Spanish because you're surrounded by a lot of Spanish speakers who you'd really like to be able to communicate with? Or you live abroad and you know that the only way to have the best possible and most enjoyable quality of life is to be able to speak the language? Or do you have family members that you need to communicate with? Is it your in-laws, for example? You'd love to be able to go beyond that surface level type of relationship that you have right now. Or are you a nurse in a hospital and it just pains you that you cannot have that small talk conversation to put your patient at ease when they speak Spanish like you can with your English speakers? It could be 100 other reasons, but the point is, I highly doubt that you started to learn Spanish with a thought of mastering tenses and moods and certain grammatical aspects. But you know you need those things in order to actually accomplish your goals. But the thing is, when you only focus on your needs with the language, like those grammar areas that you know that you need to clean up, a few things can happen. One, you could burn out. Unless you're a grammar geek, like I know some of you are. But if you're not, it's just boring to just study a bunch of grammar and hope to learn the language that way. And so a lot of times people just give up for that reason. Or you may lose motivation because the grammar, the sentence structure, isn't actually giving you the words, like the vocabulary specific words that you need for the situations that you want to be able to speak Spanish in. So you've been studying for a long time and you're still unable to have the types of conversations that you actually started learning the language for. Or you could get discouraged because you realize that even a perfect conceptual knowledge of grammar is not giving you the ability to be able to use it properly when you actually need it in spontaneous conversation. It's really hard to take a concept that you've just learned, even if you understand it well, and remember how to apply it when it happens to come up again later. So you find yourself in a situation speaking and realize that no one has time for you to mentally go through the conjugation list in your head or remember the rule for when to place this pronoun where. And so what they'll end up doing is just finishing your sentences or switching to English if they speak English too, or just kind of walking away or losing interest in the conversation. And that's definitely not what you want. It really does get discouraging when that happens time and time again. So we can't just focus on what we need because it's just too slow. Well, let's go in the opposite direction. What if we just focus on what we want? So in theory, we could just place ourselves in the situations that we need and the situations in which we want to speak Spanish. So if you want to speak to your in-laws, well, call them or visit them every single day. Talk to them as long as possible about those subjects that you want to speak about. Have a dictionary handy. Look up all of the words that you need. Have them correct you. Have a pen and paper. And once you're done with the conversation, ask them, can we have this conversation again so that I can do it better this time? Or if you live in a Spanish-speaking country, well, there's plenty of opportunity. So you need to go find enough friends and acquaintances who are willing to speak to you every day and do that same thing. Have these conversations, ask them for words or look them up in a dictionary and have them correct your sentence structure and tell you how to say it, and you repeat it, and then you say, can we have this conversation again so that I can do it better this time? It would work, guys. If you would do that, it would work. I promise you it would. So it would just be a matter of placing ourselves in those situations that we want to speak Spanish in daily for a long time each day. But there are a few problems with that for most people. It's not convenient for most people. You do have to physically put yourself in these situations in which you want to speak Spanish every day. The people who you are speaking to probably do not have all of the time in the world to help you and correct you. And certainly don't want to have the same conversation that they just had with you again. They're not teachers, they're just living their lives. Even if they want the best for you and want you to improve, there are limits to other human beings' time. Depending on your personality type, what I just described may feel really awkward to you. Or you just may be paralyzed with fear and think there's no way that I could go out and do that. So this is why simply diving into what you want, while it would work, but it's not convenient. The logistics of the situation make this very difficult for most people. So how can you learn efficiently and not feel extremely awkward while doing it? Well, you need to do both things. You need to take a look at your needs and your wants. So what you do is you learn what you need in the context of what you want so that your brain actually cares and can hang on to that information, and you do so with a person trained to help you. You see, a quick little grammar explanation, even though that is not going to teach you the language, it can help you start to notice patterns so that when you are consuming the language through your listening, through your reading, you start to notice those patterns faster than what you would have noticed if you were just trying to do it on your own. And when you're exposed to those patterns over and over again and you start to notice them, your brain starts to accept them as something valid and not just some random pieces of knowledge that it chooses to discard. And as far as speaking is concerned, when you focus in on one thing that you need, let's take the example of direct object pronouns, but you put that with a context that you actually want and can use right away. Let's say shopping in a Mexican market, for example, and you're able to do that over and over again, and not just maybe the once a week, once every twice a week that you may visit the market, then this is when it really starts to stick through the repetition in a context that matters to you. You may need to have this conversation multiple times with a person who's not going to judge you, no matter how many times you want to do it until you feel comfortable. And that is when the knowledge starts to stick faster. Notice that I'm saying faster. It's true that we are always learning language. We will always be learning language. However, when you get focused and strategic for a shorter amount of time, the results that you will obtain in that amount of time will blow you away compared to the random a little bit here, a little bit there way in which you may have been learning Spanish so far. Why not try it? Why not try it for 90 days? I invite you to my free training, The Next 90 Days Spanish workshop. This is my favorite training that I've ever put together. The energy that I have received from you guys has been electric. It's been fire. And if you have not been able to attend, please do so. Go to ericaraelanguage.com/90 days. It's completely free. Register, grab a spot, have a notebook handy because it is a packed training full of a lot of valuable information. I want you to walk away with something extremely tangible that you can use today. And until next time, guys, don't forget to go out and live a new experience with your new language today. Hasta la próxima.